Welcome to the 8th session, where we are using ancient wisdom to meet the new goal of education and create a well-being curriculum. We go from Pratyaksha and Anuman to Upaman to see how CKS and IKS, that is current and Indian knowledge systems, develop knowledge differently, and how IKS uses its ways of knowing to tap the source of wisdom. Let us examine how IKS concepts develop. Common sense states that after sense perception, inference and comparison is a natural way of investigation. So what if CKS or current knowledge system doesn't mention these? Unfortunately, in current knowledge system, clarity of the point of view for Upaman and Anuman is not ingrained in the student, or so the evidence of social pain suggests to us. This session will take you away from sense perception way of doing inference and comparison. Only then ancient wisdom's Shabda Pramana, or the awakening of the inner voice of conscience as a guide for action, shared in the next sessions, will be comprehended. Such comprehension doesn't require theory alone. It needs intense practice. Only if you have used its practices can the next sessions be comprehended. Awakening the inner voice of conscience requires self-observation, self-analysis and self-discipline. Education can only catalyze these. The inner voice does not emerge from reading theory alone. It needs practice. Sense perception based comparison may motivate us to win at any cost, without considering how we are harming others, the environment, and finally ourselves. Sense perception based inferences drawn from opportunities given to us may lead to similar motivations for actions. How to transform inner motivation? This is the goal of IKS. See some video links and write your thoughts and plans. How do you see perspectives of thought changing within you? Please write down as you see this video link. Do you think any idea shared in earlier sessions can make you a better human being? Would you like to plan and practice any one technique of IKS shared in the last session? Please write down your answers. In IKS, the Indian knowledge system, which is truly an international knowledge system, after seeing nature outside, can we see our inner nature, explore what powers sense perception? With this approach, comparison and inference lead to well-being, not social pain. We are exploring how ways of knowing, that is comparison and inference, can lead to well-being, not social pain. Let us recapitulate what is discussed till now. IKS, like current system, begins the journey of discovering the truth by starting from sense perception. Yet, its guide is not sense perception but Shabda Pramana, that we study in the next session. It observes nature outside to learn about our inner nature simultaneously. It investigates the seed and what powers senses, the seed of where the sense perception is coming from. It seeks the truth behind the mask of quantum reality. It comes to the conclusion that if breathing stops, the senses stop working. Hence, breath is more powerful than senses. Will control of breath lead to control of senses? We see that when emotions like anger and fear arise, the breath starts moving faster. The next question is, what does the breath power? It was concluded that the human mind will work only if the breath is there in the body. The next question asked was, what controls the mind? The answer was that the intellect guides the mind. Hence, the intellect is most superior. Education was designed for guiding the intellect. So, what should education seek? What stable condition humans should desire? This stable experience, they discovered, is beyond theory. It is an unchanging experience of bliss, which became the goal of education and human search for truth in Indian knowledge system, which is truly an international knowledge system. IKS seeks the goal of education by pursuing unity between two streams of knowledge, knowledge of oneself and knowledge about the world. How can they be unified? Its unified approach towards nature and human nature removed a sense of conflict within a human being. Its design also removed conflict between human beings and between human beings and nature. This led to an experience of personal and social well-being. Knowledge of oneself emerged through self-observation, self-analysis or discovery, and self-discipline. Understanding nature and human nature together is explored using its 6 philosophies or Shad-darshans. We have discussed Nyaya and Vaisheshika in the last session. We will discuss the remaining here. The eyes for seeing reality in this way are opened by its practice of speak the truth, follow righteous conduct. Its final examination is self-examination. It uses Adi Shankaracharya's advice in Bhaj Govindam that rote learning will get us some money but will not be able to remove the bondage of ignorance. Sankhya Darshan's unique way pursues IKS's search. Its investigations find that only a person with sense control is truly human. It states that it is impossible otherwise for humans to live in this physical frame with infinite powers. It appears to refute the statements in Nyaya and Vaisheshika Darshans which we discussed in the last session. And in this session we are proceeding with Sankhya Darshan. Suppose you cut an onion in this manner and someone asks you, what is the truth of the onion? You may describe its inner shape thinking that this is its inner truth. Now, suppose you cut another onion in this manner and someone asks you, what is the truth of the onion? You may describe its inner truth, inner shape, inner reality in a totally different way. In both cases, you have described the truth, but the larger truth of the onion needs to be grasped. The larger truth that Sankhya seeks is the source, just like other philosophies of IKS. Only in the case of Sankhya Darshan, it starts with numbers instead of atoms or the cause. Therefore, Sankhya Darshan is related to numbers. Its method of investigation revealed that nature is full of conflicting forces. How does it seek the source amid these conflicting forces? It again depends on the method or the eye which is used to perceive reality. It envisions reality of the source hidden in nature like oil which is hidden in the oil seeds and fragrance that is hidden in the flowers. Like seeds and flowers which are visible, nature too is the external visible form of the source. As the truth is shared using sound, investigations into the source of sound led to the sound of Om, which is shared in other religions with similar alphabets. AUM is Om in Sanskrit, Amin in Islam, and Amen in Christianity. This revealed truth is the Shabda Pramana, which has found evidence in other traditions too. This Shabda Pramana is the voice of conscience or the radiation of the source that is captured in vibration of sound and captured in materialization of words. The words as they are spoken tend to be pronounced differently and used differently in different contexts. The direct link with the source is only possible by sincere investigation and commitment to the truth. Subtle desires can cloud the subtlest of subtle truths. These can cause misinterpretations of the revealed truth of the word. The word is the revealed truth of the source using alphabets. Similarly, there is a revealed truth using numbers called Sankhya. It reveals that the most important number is 1, for there can be only one source, though it can express itself as 2 and then many. A testimony to a cause-effect theory was also placed forward by Sankhya Darshan. Creation can only be made by a combination of two forces. These two forces, it says, are God and nature, Prakriti and Purush. So, from the Sankhya takes us from nature to the source through the route of numbers. It found that the inner nature that comprehends the outside nature is composed of 24 aspects. The 5 organs of acquiring knowledge: the ear, the skin, the nose, the tongue, the eyes. The 5 organs of action: speech, hands, feet, excretion, reproduction. The 5 senses: hearing, sight, touch, taste and smell. And the 5 life breaths: the incoming, the outgoing, the upward flow, even and circulating breaths. Add to this mind, intellect, chitta or the reflective mind, and the ego, that I am separate from all. These are the 24 aspects. Each one appears as a conflicting, unique force within and outside. For example, where there is fire, there can be no water. And yet, the Sankhya splits these conflicting forces into just 3 subheads to facilitate an easy understanding. That of the Jiva, the individual, Prakriti, that is nature, and Paramatma, that is the creator, which is Param, which doesn't change. But Sankhya does not stop with the creator. It says, when to the 24 numbers the self is added, the number becomes 25. So, while 24 numbers denote matter visible in creation or nature, the 25th is the self, the creator, the one who visualizes. It is different from the source, which is the 26th, which is the cause of both the self who is visualizing and creation, which it is seeing. So, the process of evolution of the human soul begins with all the 24 numbers of matter, crosses the 25th, that is the self, as well as finally merges in the Shiva aspect, this 26th. This views the 25th self as identifying itself with the seed of creation. Finally, after an experience of oneness with the seed that led to creation, it is ready for merger with the source, which is hidden just as oil is hidden in the oil seeds. So, Sankhya gives different interpretations about consciousness, and within it different interpretations exist about the source. So, while the self forms a part of the human being in the heart, it is also in nature. It states that it is only a noble one who can see the two-in-one aspect of the self being within as well as in nature. How to visualize this perception of reality within oneself? It visualized oneself, that is the human being, as a bridge between visible nature and the invisible all-pervasive divinity. So the human form is forming the link between the all-pervasive divinity and the nature that is visible outside. He or she is hence called Madhyam, the middle one. When what we consider as invisible is what is actually guiding the consequences, contrary to our belief. We think that this has happened because of this visible reason, but it's an invisible reason which is making it happen. The seasons are changing because of an invisible reason. The white paper like mind on which the life records of several births of ours is recorded is called Chitta. The power or the source is also called Pragyana Shakti. The radiation, this radiation vibrates the life force, creates vibration, which enables materialization. And this Prana Shakti, this vibration, makes each body alive and functional. How is the truth stated in the Vedic texts that give eternal ideas of righteous conduct? How is it stated? Krishna says in the Gita that I am the seed of all the elements and all beings. Nature is his body. The cosmos is his will. Vedas, or the eternal ideas of righteous conduct, are his breath. How is the truth stated in texts that do not believe in God? This philosophy is also interpreted to believe that the non-conscious or insentient is the source of the primordial matter. It bases creation on the three qualities of nature: serenity, activity, and passivity. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. We explore this threefold manifestation in great detail later. When these qualities are well balanced and in equipoise, no conscious decision that binds us to creation arises. The Buddhist and Jain belief system has a Sankhya view without a belief in God. So let's look at the importance of zero that arises from Sankhya. Self-actualization and self-realization are effortless if all desires are made zero. The Sankhya Darshan explicitly states that actually no special effort need to be made to attain liberation. When humans realize their true form, they are liberated. When all sense perception, attractions and desires within are destroyed, they get liberated. Moha Shaya is moksha. Moha is that attachment, Shaya is the end of attachment, finish of attachment, that is moksha. In terms of numbers, the darshans explain that as long as humans identify with the 24 numbers and the Purusha self aspect, they can never realize that they are the truth. It is only when they travel beyond to the supermind that the truth can be fathomed. That is the divine mind of the Vedas. Just as removing the roof reveals the sky, Sankhya removes the roof of the lower mind to see the higher mind and finally the overmind. In this way, by showing numbers, this text helps guide humans from nature to the source. The Nyaya Darshan states the differences between two atoms, but the Sankhya Darshan states that the entire cosmos is in the microcosm as an atomic structure. So, why talk of a separate atomic structure? The infinite source or God is this microcosm too. That is the significance of the Vedic statement, smaller than the smallest, mightier than the mightiest. as a description of the source. It is beyond time and space. You split the atom and you see the mightier than the mightiest aspect. When you use a microscope, you cannot see the smaller than the smallest aspect. You have to use a finer instrument. So that's the truth of the Vedic statement: smaller than the smallest, mightier than the mightiest. For those hearing these ideas for the first time, it can be confusing. So let us tell a story to clarify what the application of the concept implies. A sage lived in the forest. He loved the animals there, and they loved him too. One day the fox went to the lion with a question: why are humans called the peak of creation, and in what way are they superior to animals? Both have emotions and passions. Both have their own good and bad qualities. Why then this superiority? The king of the jungle called a conference to discuss this and invited the sage to give the judgment. The conference agenda had 4 points. The first point: both humans and animals are born alike of the womb of the mother. Then why should animals be called animals? The second agenda: there is a fantastic notion that humans are wise and animals are foolish. The animal said, we cannot accept this humiliation and baseless stigma. The third agenda: the animal said that it is claimed that humans have the most blessed faculty of speech. But what is the reason for pride when they are only abusing this faculty? In what way do we suffer for want of this faculty? Though we are dumb, we are able to procure food, find shelter, rear our children and live happily. Only because of one superiority? They cannot be superior. The lion felt he is superior in strength, but also the fact that he does not use the strength to unnecessarily harm other animals. He only kills when he is hungry. The elephant said, not only am I superior in strength, but my memory is respected by humans too. The dog said he has better quality of love, faithfulness and loyalty than humans. Finally, the fourth contention, the animals said, humans say that we are cruel and that humans are kind and compassionate. In fact, the animals said we are more kind and considerate than humans. So we have to refute this allegation as well. The time came for the sage to give his judgment. He agreed that what the dog has said is true. Humans, unlike dogs, often say one thing and do another. This inconsistency is not to be found in animals. All the animals clapped for long with joy. The sage continued, in the matter of food, sleep and allied habits of living, there is absolutely no difference between humans and animals. But there is one fundamental difference. The animals cannot transform themselves, while humans can transform through education, company and emulation. The animals cannot even change their food habits. The fox asked, but do you think that all men transform themselves? The sage agreed that those who do not are worse than animals. At once all the animals clapped and cheered. The sage continued, humans have got another virtue, discrimination. The fox argued that what is the use of it? They put even animals to shame in their bad conduct. The sage concluded, dear animals, you must also be told about another important distinction. Humans can conquer illusion. They can realize the self or Atma and attain immortality by union with the source of creation. In fact, the word man indicates three attributes. M means Maya, A means the Atmic vision, and N means Nirvana. By getting rid of illusion and attaining Atmic vision, man can become God. Why don't you own and admit your limitations? The animals asked him, do you mean to say that all men use these three attributes? No, not all of them, replied the sage. Then those who do not attain nirvana by conquering illusion and having Atmic vision must be treated as our comrades, asserted the animals in one voice. Oh dear ones, replied the sage, I have come to this forest only to be your friend and prove myself to be a true man. Please pause the session here and write down the 26 numbers of Sankhya. 5 sheets of soul, 5 senses, 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, 5 airs, life breath, downward air diffused throughout the body, upward through the throat, digestive air, the mind, the intellect, the subconscious mind, ego and the individual soul and source. Check those which animals have and those which only humans have. You will understand the session better then. Patanjali's Eightfold Yoga is what we come to now. Actually, a separate course is needed for each darshan. We began this session with an introduction about the critical importance of the breath. This philosophy, Patanjali's Eightfold Yoga, guides us about the breath. As mentioned earlier, say the top of the hill is the source. You can travel up to the mountain to reach it in any manner that appeals to your individuality. That is the uniqueness of Shad Darshan. It recognizes the individuality of all, and its 6 darshans give many ways that are adaptable to each one's inner nature. All of them help us to reach the same goal, the top of the mountain. The IKS approach is to develop the human qualities in society. How can this be done? Society is made up of individuals. No one can be an island. Living amidst fellow human beings requires the art of loving all to create harmony, to enjoy peace in society. This, IKS says, is the hallmark of human behavior. It requires self-discipline and realizing one's potential. Only if our potential is realized can we contribute it to society. To achieve this potential, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga gives different disciplines. The first is Yama, outer sense control. Niyama is the next, inner sense control. Asana, the sitting posture, is the next. Pranayam, breath control, is the next. Pratyahara, sense withdrawal or detachment, is the next. Then comes Dharana, concentration, Dhyan, meditation, and finally Samadhi, inner communion. Yama calls for the observance of the following practices: Ahimsa, non-violence; Satyam, truth; Astheyam, non-stealing; Brahmacharya, celibacy; and Aparigraha, non-acquisitiveness. These 5 human values, Vedanta says, need to be cultivated. Ahimsa, the first value, goes beyond not causing harm to others. It means not causing harm to anyone in thought, word or deed. Only if the first quality is developed can truth be practiced and experienced. What is truth? What truth should we seek? What truth should we speak? The course seeks to develop a habit of speaking the truth. But what truth do we see? If sense perception is the only guide to our truth, will it be the real truth? The time has come to ask and answer this question. Truth is not merely stating facts as per sense perception's conceptions. Truth is that which does not change with time. It must be spoken with purity of the mind, speech and body. It is the second value of Yama. Astheyam is refraining from stealing which belongs to others. This is the third human value. Brahmacharya is the fourth. Its observance implies Brahman, supreme source, being suffused in all thoughts, words and deeds. If thoughts centered on the source precede action, actions are unlikely to go astray. IKS's yoga is not only for monks or renunciates in forests. Research shows that all humans need yoga. It even helps in daily problems like removing fatigue, making the body strong, instilling self-confidence, etc., etc. A rat race in the world causes physical and mental strain, sleeplessness and restlessness. Sleeping pills and intoxicating drinks used to solve these problems have side effects. Combined with lack of rest, heart diseases, blood pressure, etc. have become a problem. With lack of rest, research finds that the body weakens. Yoga will say that this causes the breathing process to speed up and spoils the lungs. As blood circulation speeds up, slowly blood pressure problems sets in. Medicine cannot cure it completely, and hence yoga is prescribed. These findings are supported by research. A story sometimes explains simply what a darshan can help us achieve. A king had 5 wives. Each constantly made a lot of demands for gifts and other things. The king was afraid of his wives and tired of constantly getting new things for them. This made him unhappy. He could not find a solution and decided to consult his ministers on how not to be afraid of wives. He called them only to discover that all of them too are also afraid of their wives. Then all of them decided to consult someone who is not afraid. The king then invited all the male population. He put up a tent for those who are afraid of their wives and another tent for those who are not. On the big day, the male population went into the tent for those who are afraid of their wives. Nobody came into the other tent. The king was upset. At the last minute, one man did come to the tent for those who are not afraid. The king rushed to meet him and asked for the secret that made him not afraid of his wife. But the man said that he too is afraid of his wife. The angry king commanded him to go to the other tent. But the man refused to do so and instead asked for punishment. His willingness to take punishment surprised the king. The king asked, "Why won't you go?" And the man replied, "Because my wife told me to come to this tent." We are all like the king with 5 senses as the 5 wives. Our eyes get attracted to beauty, creating a desire. We are afraid of our senses and allow them to control us. All the darshans urge us to become the king once again and not the slave of the 5 senses. Thus, the first step in our lives is to learn to control the 5 senses. Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga helps us control the 5 senses and travel the journey all the way further. Now we consider the 2 Mimamsas, the Purva and the Uttara. We discuss Purva Mimamsa first. The word Mimamsa in IKS implies conclusion arrived at after inquiry and investigation. It is the inference finally accepted as correct after deeply considering of all possible doubts and alternatives. Purva is added to Mimamsa because it existed even before the Vedas. It gives a root to Brahman starting with karma or physical action using the body. Then it goes to dharma and to Brahma, the source. It has karma, dharma and Brahma, jignasus. Investigating actions while experiencing worldly life is karma jignasu. Understanding that there is no permanent joy obtainable from this world is dharma jignasu. And introducing bliss in life through introspection is Brahma jignasu. Sage Jaimini solved the paradox that though the body is temporary, why should there be an emphasis on using it for karma? He concluded that this was necessary to purify the mind. Only by doing karma can the mind be purified. It can be argued that nature is a natural entity and no one has created it. The counter for this is matter and energy need someone to combine them. Oil, wick and container may be present, but it needs someone to strike a match to light the lamp. This is the logic for education to light the lamp of wisdom. Though the subject and intelligence are present, a teacher is needed to impart a proper guidance for getting educated. Jaimini states that good education must impart good habits, ideas, truth, responsibility and discipline besides intellectual knowledge. Purva Mimamsa deals with anger control. Without inner purity, reaching the goal is an illusion. The process of educating oneself also needs a lot of patience. These are two primary virtues needed. From Purva to Uttar Mimamsa, the Vedas are about two concepts, Dharma and Brahman. Purva Mimamsa gives rites and rituals, which is karma, as Dharma. The Uttar Mimamsa, concluding validation, deals with Brahman and emphasizes experiential wisdom, that is Jnana. The Purva Mimamsa starts with stating Athato Dharma Jignasa. Thereafter the inquiry on righteousness, that is Dharma. The Uttar Mimamsa starts by saying Athato Brahma Jignasa. Thereafter the inquiry into Brahman. The awareness of Brahman, Uttar Mimamsa concludes, cannot be won by accumulating wealth or by giving away of riches, nor can it be achieved by reading texts, rising to power, acquiring degrees and diplomas, or performing scriptural sacrifices and rituals. What is the understanding of the human body that will enable the goal to be reached? How to visualize it? The body is an anthill with the mind inside the cavity. This is one way of visualizing it. The body is an anthill with the mind inside the cavity. The mind has hidden in it the serpent named ignorance, Ajnana. The serpent cannot be killed by resorting to sense satisfaction oriented works, that is Kamya Karma. Spiritual wisdom, Jnana, is the only weapon that can kill the serpent. That person alone who has faith can secure wisdom. Shraddhavan labhyate jnanam. And faith means steady faith in the eternal ideas of righteous conduct. The practices of both Purva and Uttar Mimamsa are useful. Purva Mimamsa's methods are to control grief. Says when grief strikes, it advises that one must think of joyful incidents. This gives joy. For anger, it says control of anger and overcoming the obstacles in daily life is also dealt with. It asks us to slowly analyze the situation when angry. By the time a conclusion is reached, tempers cool down considerably. One may also do one of the following things to control anger. 1. Drink a glass of cold water. 2. See the mirror where your distorted features will repulse you enough to cool you down. 3. Walk fast and alone. This speeds up your circulation that draws away anger. 4. Open a tap and match your pitch of song with that of the falling water. In all these attempts, the time and attention definitely help cool tempers. Uttar Mimamsa's method: do not give in to excitement. The example of Arjuna can be taken. He was highly perturbed when Krishna was leaving to make peace with the Kauravas, as he felt that a war was best suited. But the same Arjuna collapsed at the sight of his grandfather, teachers, cousins, relatives and friends lined up to do battle. Hence, staying calm and composed and not becoming excited to acquire something is the path of Uttar Mimamsa. Stick to the practice of doing righteous conduct. Uttar Mimamsa guides us to do this, to concentrate on protecting your righteousness, which in turn will protect you. So what it says is Dharmo Rakshati Rakshataha. Hence it recommends that while following your daily routines, contemplate always on the source. Whatever you are, whatever you do it as if it is reaching the source or God directly. The final wisdom of the Advaitic view to liberation is Vedanta. It is discussed now. Vedanta's non-duality is an ultimate goal. It seeks the spirit that powers and creates matter. It begins a search for the spirit that creates all that we see, and it ends it when the spirit which is beyond matter is found within ourselves. Vedanta leads to three types of yoga. The first type is Tarakam, the second is Sankhya, the third is Amanasakam. These three are the essence and also the goal of Vedanta. Tarakam's path is to comprehend and experience principles behind the subtle yogic postures, the mudras. It then goes beyond them, concentrating on the center of the eyebrows and the I am God principle to ultimately experience Sat Chit Anand, existence, knowledge, bliss. It merges the mind in the supreme principle of truth, awareness, bliss, absolute, to attain total wisdom. The second type of yoga is Sankhya. Since it deals with numbers, Sankhya, it is called Sankhya Yoga. The human body consists of 25 of them, and the 26th is the source. Sankhya consists of understanding that you are none of these 25, and the reality goes beyond them. This is what they call the Neti approach. Not this, not this. The source is without form or shape. Therefore, we reject everything one by one after close examination to conclude that this is not the source, this is not the source. And answer the continuous investigation of who am I led to the realization that one is nothing but the eternal principle capable of truth, awareness and bliss. This comes after the realization that the reality is not what we see. Is reality what we want to see? That this is the path of jnana. Vedanta and what will be the impact of Vedanta on sciences, mathematics, etc. The karma theory tells us a simple thing: by actions we create our own karma or our own reality. Can the purity of actions or the purity of search create the source itself? Can it come in the form that we want? The answer to that is yes. Therefore, both approaches exist depending on what appeals to your inner nature. After the neti, not this, not this, a devotion to truth leads to the truth of the source. The nature of this truth is yes, yes, yes. Is this opposite to Sankhya, when the formless source takes a form as per the wishes of the seeker? This is the approach of bhakti as compared to jnana. For those who surrender the ego from the heart, the source does not have to rise and travel through the chakras above the heart. The person doesn't have to travel. His surrender is accepted at the heart only for the merger. The example of Gopikas is given for this. The third type of yoga is Amanasakam, the blissful state of realization. The realization leads to seeing the truth behind the five elements always. There is nothing else in this visible world made of five elements except Brahman. That is why the Vedas say Brahman is one without a second. Ekameva advitiyam Brahma. The entire creation is the manifestation of Brahman. There is no second entity. Once this truth is realized, the mind ceases to exist. You see diversity in this world only due to the thoughts and counter thoughts in your mind. When unity is realized in this diversity, then there is no mind. Everything is Brahman. This seriously impacts current ideas of sciences, mathematics, making their ideas fly differently. Whatever you see, hear, think, speak and do, wherever you go, everything is Brahman. Only when there is a second entity is there scope for thoughts and counter thoughts. But when there is only unity, and that is Brahman, there is no scope for thoughts and counter thoughts. This is the state of amanasika, meaning a state devoid of mind. We will introduce this idea in our mathematics and sciences sessions along with the infinite expressions of the source of creation. Only love exists in amanasikam. That love is the truth. In fact, truth and love are one and the same. When truth and love unite, the world loses its identity for the individual and Brahman is seen everywhere. What will academic subjects look like from this viewpoint? Let us end this session with a story. There is a story of a king. He asked all people who came to his kingdom the path of realization. Each one did so. Some based themselves on standard texts, others on what elders told them. Each gave one particular path as the right one for liberation to the king. A servant sitting close to the king listened to these very many descriptions. All were being given as the right path for liberation. He found the king listening continuously to all the different methods of attaining moksha, but was not putting any into daily practice. This was not the right thing, the servant felt. He decided to teach the king this lesson. One day, when the king was sitting and talking to the public, the servant suddenly rushed from outside, shouting very loudly. The king reacted to this inexplicable behavior that had never happened before. He got up suddenly and asked the servant what he was shouting about. The servant's face was full of anxiety as he replied. He said that all the palace camels were climbing up to the top of the terrace. The king was deeply perplexed and asked, how could camels climb to the terrace? The servant then said that if the king, without an inch of practice, can aspire to climb up the ladder of spirituality and reach the roof of liberation and moksha, similarly the camels were climbing all the way to the terrace. This course lays a deep emphasis on practice. Every attempt is made to make all the lectures very short. A 5-minute slot at the end of this lecture is being given for silent sitting. This is to enable the participant to mull over what is said. Whatever has been heard should be repeated in the mind so that it gets absorbed. Just as sugar is stirred in a cup of tea or coffee with a spoon, use the spoon of silence to stir the sugar of Indian knowledge systems in your mind. It takes some time for the tea or coffee to become sweet. Patience is very important. The perspectives shared in the course will seem meaningful only if such silent sitting is done to mull over what has been said. Else, the half an hour spent in delivering the lectures will be a waste of time. We welcome you to undertake an inner journey during these 5 minutes. Only then will knowledge that is outside you will become wisdom inside you. The time allocated for this is actually 20 minutes, not 5 minutes. The time should be increased gradually. This is also a time for the mind to take rest. In case it cannot do that, Mull over whether the voice of the conscience has guided you at any time in life till now. We accept challenges for the physical body in games. In a gym, we can have a 20 minutes plank challenge. We may exchange challenges on the quantity of food we can eat. Can we go beyond such challenges to the second step of the Indian knowledge systems? Can we see if the mind itself can take rest and maybe stop working? Can we explore what will happen if it becomes zero? Remember, it is not good to challenge the mind. It rebels and makes you do the opposite of what you want it to do. It is far simpler to observe the mind. For doing this, first the physical body should move as little as possible. Observe the mind as it tells the body to move. You are not telling the body to move, the mind is telling the body to move. Observe the mind. Move away from the mind and see what it is forcing the body to do. Watch the mind as if you are sitting on a fan at a distance. When you are at home, Shavasana in yoga is a good posture for this practice. Try to first silence the body, then the mind. For those who have mastered this, they can try the next method. When you think of nothing, can you experience love without giving it a shape of a thing like your favorite food or a thing that you want to own or the physical form of a person? Can it just be love without an emotion to a person or a thing? Can it be love for the sake of love? How do you experience loving yourself? The purpose of this course is to help you discover yourself, that loving being beyond the body and the mind.